Hey guys, and welcome back to another Factorio Friday Facts discussion. And today we are going over some optimization stuff in this one and the potential main stable version of 0.15. So title is 0.15 stable, but not really. And also before we continue, I would like to point out you may notice my voice sounds different. Don't worry, I didn't change any of my settings. I'm actually out of town right now and recording this, so I'm recording in a different environment. The acoustics are different and my mic is positioned differently and stuff. So just a heads up, if it does sound different, that's why. We'll be back to normal here pretty soon. So anyway, the 0.15 has been declared stable. Unfortunately, we found some smaller problems, so there's going to be at least one bug fix release. One of the problems we discovered yesterday is a glitch in the blueprint transferring logic that results in the transfer stopping forever when a player that is just transferring his blueprint into the game leaves. I'm quite surprised that I found it myself when I was testing something else and we didn't have a single bug report regarding it. And I would agree that is kind of interesting that out of all the players playing the game and stuff that no one reported that. Maybe they thought that was like just how it was supposed to work or something. I don't know, maybe they didn't notice, but I'm glad that's fixed. There was also some like security exploit or something that they fixed in 0.15.31, which of course is now this stable candidate. So it's on Steam and stuff for stable. I would highly recommend upgrading to it, even if just for the security thing. So definitely upgrade to this, I would recommend. Anyway, blueprint library versus mod issue. So this is actually quite interesting. So the kind of summary of this is that if you have a blueprint with modded items in them, that if you like if you input the blueprint in your blueprint library, as it says here, both systems work when used separately, but new problems come when you put these features together. Basically it's describing that when you have blueprints with modded content and you switch to vanilla or a different mod setup, all the mod related content in the blueprint library is removed upon opening any game. This makes these blueprints useless if you go back because it doesn't put it back in if you re-enable the mod. So I mean, that is an issue with things for sure, because if you want to transfer a blueprint with some mod items in it, whether it be creative mode stuff or whatever, BOS mods or other type of things, and then load the game without it, those items are removed from the blueprints, and then you can't get them back. So they've it's really annoying. So they've fixed it or changed it essentially. So they decided to solve it by having blueprint libraries separated for every mod configuration and by allowing players to transfer library contents from different mod configurations to current one on demand. They decided not to put it in 15 in fear that it may break more stuff, which I think is smart because it could potentially break quite a few things. So they're going to wait for 16 for that to come out. Blueprint interaction while being downloaded. Just some UX stuff here. The plan is to make a special item type that will be basically a promise of a blueprint and use it in this case. Once the blueprint transfer into the game is finished, the item will change into the blueprint. When the player related to it will leave or remove the blueprint from its library, the item will just disappear. So now we move on to the rail block visualization. If you recall, back in Friday Facts 198, which is only a couple weeks ago, they discussed the rail block visualization and stuff, and they actually have it done now. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but because it's talking about all different color stuff, it's fairly technical, this first part. Essentially, they're just discussing what type of colors they wanted to use. If is 4 colors enough? What do they want to do for this? So the conclusion is that essentially, although it is possible to construct rail systems that result in our algorithm putting two of the same block colors to each other, it is not really a problem. So they're trying to figure out, because there would be the possibility of having 2 blocks with the same color right next to each other, which could be confusing. But they found a way to where that's extremely low chance of happening. So here is a junction they've built, which try to ignore the massive excess of signals here. And what they are saying here is, here's an example of an intersection with a missing signal. How fast can you find it in the old way? By just looking at it like this. So I'm going to leave it here for just a second. I mean, I looked at it for just not too long. Try to find the missing signal. It was a little hard because this has insanely excess signals as well. But if you do spot where the missing signal is on this, then if we scroll down to the visualization thing that is going to be in 16, how fast can you find it when you see the visualization? So this is the rail visualization blocks, the rail blocks. And you can see they kind of correspond. What this is showing is the different blocks. Rail signals make blocks. You know, so like from this signal to this signal is a block, from this signal to this signal is a block, you know, from here to here, from here into here, this yellow, between this one and this one, this guy and this guy is a block, and between this one and this one. However, if you didn't spot it up above here, we are missing a signal right here where my mouse is. You can see this block goes from this signal all the way through here into here, which you don't really want. You want a chain signal before crossings typically. So you need a signal right here to kind of match this guy here. So this would help. Of course, if you don't really know how signals work anyway, I'm not sure how helpful this would be. Which, I mean, it's not their fault at all. That's not like, you know, criticizing it at all. I'm just, in general, you know, if you don't really know how signals work, I'm not sure this is going to help. Because like when I didn't know how signals worked at all, if I looked at this, I'd just be like, okay, great, there's rail blocks, what am I looking for, you know? But if you at least have a basic understanding of signals, I think this would definitely help you kind of find where things are missing, or maybe you have excess. Like I said, this junction is not, technically it has way too many signals, but that's beside the point. And now down to optimizations. I'm definitely not reading through all of this because it would take a really long time and it's quite technical, but our seating goes through stuff. Now, if you do like this technical stuff, I highly recommend reading this, because our seating, what I really like about the way he writes this stuff is he actually like goes through what he does and the actual results, like the before and then the after, and explains what he actually does and why it did what it did. So these technical write-ups and optimizations by our seating are always really interesting. I did read through the whole thing myself. I won't on screen here, but essentially he's talking about like saving the game. He actually used our Colonel Will and I in Mojo's Mad Science map for this. You can see after some difficulties getting everything set up, it was almost 100% faster than the previous setup I was using, talking about they upgraded a computer to an i9. After that significant improvement in compilation times, that got me wondering what else I do multiple times per day development-wise that I could speed up. That led to game startup time, map loading, saving, and map generation. I grabbed a relatively large save file with a large factory, Colonel Will's current map, so our Mad Science map, and set it to get a baseline. So, you know, our save is 45 megabytes, probably over 50 at this point, and 132 megabytes compressed. In 0:15:31, it takes 3.89 seconds to load and 2.4 seconds to save. So that, I mean, that's a little bit, you know, when you consider you're just loading or saving a map. However, he continues this down. So let me just find the results here. In the end, I found a few small things to improve on, such that saving the map in 16 now only takes 0.225 seconds, 9% improvement. So not huge, but it's an improvement. You know, not what I hoped for, but an improvement is an improvement, exactly. So again, he kind of just talks about the data writing, how that works. Map load time. So another 28% improvement. The end result being what took 3.89 seconds to load in 15, which, if you recall up here for our map, now takes 2.8 seconds in 0:16. So that's a bit more of an improvement, 28%. Game startup time. So this is something, these are all game startup time things. And again, not going to read through all of it here, but I do recommend, because it is quite interesting. He does explain like every step here, which is really cool. But this is all for load, like when you first start the game, like load Factorio. And I have noticed, my own thoughts here, sorry about that. I have noticed that as we progress through versions and stuff, which is kind of understandable because they're adding more content and stuff, but I have noticed as we progress through that the game is taking longer and longer to load. Will and I and Mojo have been discussing this a fair bit recently, that the game really does take quite a long time to load. You know, like, and my computer is nowhere near, like, by no means a bad computer whatsoever. And I mean, it takes probably a good 25 seconds or so, probably more than that, probably like 30 or more seconds to load the game up. Potentially even more than that. It takes quite a long time, a lot longer than it used to. So, and he kind of breaks it down, each part, he gets a 46% improvement from the graphics, which is pretty huge, because like the sprites and stuff usually is like what takes the longest for me usually. 29% improvement with the mods, 44% improvement. So the conclusion is I can now launch the game and be at the main menu ready to play in just 2.962 seconds, which is actually super fast. And I do keep in mind, this is on like a super high end, an i9, the newest Intel processor with, obviously equivalent motherboard RAM, and he probably has an SSD or something as well, which does help. So do keep that in mind that, this is like top of the line numbers essentially, but that's still quite fast. So even with lower end computers, I think it would definitely be an improvement. Map generation, new maps, a 56% improvement. He changed it so the starting area would generate in multiple threads if possible while still maintaining determination. The end result being 1531 generates a new map in 1.83 seconds, and 16 a new map generates in 0.8 seconds, a 56% improvement, which is quite huge. So the conclusion is the overall start, game, load, generate game experience is measurably faster. Most importantly, it feels noticeably faster, which is the important part, to actually be able to, notice and have it feel that way. It makes for a better overall experience when we don't have to wait for things. With the belt optimization, everything mentioned here, 016 is already promising to improve performance in multiple areas, and full 16 development hasn't even begun, with other ideas we've talked about in previous Friday's facts still to be implemented, promising even better performance, which is great. So, like I said before, performance, like the optimizations are actually one of the things I look forward to the most in these updates. The features, the artillery train is going to be pretty cool. I'm really looking forward to the new terrain, but optimizations are always, especially once I started, not so much quite a while ago, but once I started playing more Chrono Will and then started building my own huge bases and stuff, the optimizations are super important for that. And, our seeding, I mentioned this last Friday Facts discussion, our seeding was kind of hinting at some ideas he had for massive improvements for bots, which again, I'm not going to go really into because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share that, but he did have some ideas which were just ideas. He said he had to run them past the other devs to see, because there were a few issues with it. But if it does get approved, he said he could do that, and that would be like 4 or 5 times improvement on logistics bot performance. And then obviously fluids and stuff are another big one, which I think they're maybe trying to work on. I think he still has to kind of run that past devs. He has some ideas how to fix it, but he has to run it past the rest of the guys on the dev team. So hopefully in 16 we can get some other improvements as well. These are definitely fantastic, really, really interesting read. I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. Again, if you're interested in reading this stuff, definitely check it out. Link in the description as always. Check out the forum discussion, the subreddit discussion, always some cool things there. I was noticing on the Reddit that the devs, our seeding himself, replied to quite a few things, so some interesting stuff going on there. And I think that'll do it. As always, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to leave a like. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.